What's up, fish keepers? Really nice to see you guys again. Today I want to talk about aquarium substrate. One of the most important things when you set up an aquarium. And I know there's so many options out there, which is why I'm making this video to tell you my experience because I've worked with almost every single one of them. Choosing the best aquarium substrate is like choosing the perfect pillow for your fish. Too hard, they'll be uncomfortable. Too soft, they'll sink into oblivion. It's a delicate balance, my friends. By the end of this video, you'll be an aquarium substrate expert, and your fish will thank you with bubbles. So the first category is the substrate you can buy from the pet store. Usually that's the first kind of substrate people get exposed to. Yeah, they can be a very convenient and attractive option, especially for beginners. They usually are natural looking, it's easy to work with because they're really clean, most of them super clean, and they're free of sharp edges. And since they're so clean, so it's very unlikely there's some parasites or unwanted hitchhikers like snails in them. The problems with them are, first, they're usually very expensive, and also they're not ideal for planted tank because they're just too clean. They're too sterile, or way slower to cycle a tank with a substrate like that. Second option is also sand, but from other sources instead of getting them from, aquarium store, pet store. You get them from hardware stores. For example, you can get pool filter sand. Those are usually very clean and they're way cheaper than the aquarium sand you buy from the store. But also they can be still a little bit more expensive than the next one, which is the play sands, which is my favorite. But the problem with them is that they're really dirty. If you set up a tank with the play sand, you have to be very patient because sometimes it's going to take a couple weeks for the tank to clear up. But once they do, that natural look of play sand in the aquarium, I don't think any substrate can compete with that. That's natural. It's part of nature. That's where the play sand comes from. Usually play sand is not uniformed. They have different, sometimes tiny gravels in them, different coloration. It just gives you more detailed textures. They're super cheap. In my local store, they cost about $9 for 60-70 pounds. Oh, there is another option called lasting sands. I'm not quite sure what they use that for, but it's kind of like pool filter sand. They have bigger grain size and they're usually already cleaned. And in my local store, they come in white or black. They're cheaper than the pool filter sand that I can find here. Yeah, the problem with them is that they don't look natural at all. I use them. I'm just not a big fan. Okay, the next one is also one of my favorite for planted tank, and it's also cheap. It's this safety sorb product. They're kind of like little clay chips. They used to clean up those spills like oil or some other liquid. So first of all, it's an inert pH neutral material, meaning that it won't not affect the water chemistry, making it safe for most fish and plants. And of course, these little clay chips, it's got all those tiny pores texture that can help with the growth of beneficial bacteria. So it's kind of like a biological filtration for your tank. And also, it's usually very cheap. I spent like $20 for a huge bag. The problems with them is that some people don't like the look of it. I do. I think it's very natural, but some people think it's not uniform. It looks kind of messy. Also, there is no nutrient in them. So if you want to use them for planted aquariums, you have to actually add fertilizer, which will be absorbed by them and locked into this substrate. And I think the biggest problem with this substrate is that it's extremely dirty. It's just like play sand. So you need to have a lot of patience when you use it to set up a new tank. For beginners, I don't think that's possible. The next one is gravel. Different pebbles, different gravel, different size, big, small. I've used them all. The pros with them is that, especially when you have shrimp or small fish that are breeding, those shrimplets or flies, they can just hide in the gaps of those gravel, perfect for shrimp tank. And also it's very cheap. You can spend like $5 for a huge bag of gravel, and they're easy to clean. Just rinse them. And also they provide you that natural look, especially if you want to set up a river bottom tank. I have that set up that 7-gallon bumblebee goby tank. You guys can check that one out. I used gravel there. It looks really natural, but the problem with it is that it's nearly impossible to plant in them. So I usually would just add a layer of gravel on top of sand after I planted all those plants. Next one, the famous aqua soil. You know, those tiny little ball-shaped soil. They're excellent nutrient source for plants, and I've tried them. I use them as well. You can check out that video where I set up a tank for my CPDs. I use the aqua soil. It's really easy to plant in them because it's not like sand, it flows around. Or it's not like gravel, it's so rigid you can't plant anything. It has the advantages of both sand and gravel, so it makes you really easy to anchor those plants down. It's very expensive, and for beginners, it has too much nutrients. It can cause algae issues, and personally, I do not like the look of it. It doesn't look natural. Okay, the next category is some special kind of substrate, for example, shells, arachnites, crushed corals, these kinds. You can get them from the store, but they usually meant for some special fish, like African cichlids or saltwater. I've seen people using the shells in a Tanganyikan tank. It looks really good and really natural, but as I said, you cannot do anything else with that kind of substrate. You cannot plant in them, and they're not meant for every other kind of fish. The last category is soil. It's not the aqua soil I talked about. This is just the regular soil, like pot soil or topsoil. I've used them in my planted tank. You guys can check out that video where I set up my 60-gallon rainbow planted tank. I used topsoil. It worked out great. It's one of my favorite tanks. I'm going to recreate that, probably in a 125-gallon tank, even bigger, when I have enough space. So the pros are they're very cheap, great for planted aquarium. Soil comes with bacteria already, so there's all kinds of micro creatures in them. If you use them to cycle your new tank is going to cycle way faster than those ones who use the substrate they bought from the store, completely sterile. But if you want to use this kind of substrate, you have to get some sand as well because they're extremely dirty. So you can use a layer of topsoil in the bottom of the tank and then cap it with a thicker layer of sand. So there's no problem, your tank's gonna look clean. If I were to choose, my favorite is the play sand. That's my number one go-to. And if you want to do a planted tank, I would just use the topsoil in the bottom, and then I'm just going to cap it with play sand. But again, depending on the fish, the kind of fish you're keeping, some of them need sandy substrate like cichlid, or whether you want your tank to be planted, what's your budget, how much time you have, it all depends. Just get a substrate that's suitable for you. And also, of course, the most important thing is that your fish are okay with that kind of substrate. Anyway, I've shared my experience. I'm really glad. Hope you guys can make the decisions accordingly. Peace out.